Several groups have asked the Supreme Court to compel Congress to enact a law against political dynasties. Petitioners also want lawmakers held in contempt if they fail to comply within a year. Respondents include the Senate, represented by Senate President Jesus Cordero, and the House, led by Speaker Martin Romualdez.
For his part, Senator Coco Pimentel asserted that the Supreme Court cannot interfere with Congress's plenary power to legislate, even on the issue of political dynasty. However, he expressed optimism that Congress will eventually pass a measure to address the issue. Meantime, several congressmen, including Quadcom Chair Ace Barbers and the Makabayan Bloc, are backing the SC petition, believing that it can advance under the Marcos administration. Marcos cabinet officials will no longer attend the Senate hearing on the ICC's arrest order of former President Rodrigo Duterte. That is according to a letter from Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin sent to the lead committee chair, Senator Amy Marcos. The presidential sister had this to say about that letter.
Nakakalungkot naman kasi alam niyo maraming tanong pa rin, bitin pa rin kasi preliminary report lang naman ang kinaya ko. Marami pa rin katanungan ng taong bayan. Ang dami nga nagte-text, nagtatanong. Tapos, marami rin bagong impormasyon na sana maging pagkakataon para yung mga magulong sagot, yung hindi magkatugma-tugma ng mga datos, at saka yung mga katanungan ng taong bayan, sana pagkakataon yun para maisagot. Executive privilege at sub judice, alam naman natin, walang pinagbawal na ng Korte Suprema, Chief Justice si Executive Secretary Bersamin, kabisado niya yan, alam niya, walang pangkalahatang blanket na executive privilege. I-invoke lang yung executive privilege, depende sa tanong. One by one lang yun. Walang pangkalahatang executive privilege lahat ng topic. Kaya nagulat naman ako. Kaya, sabi ko sa kanila, may sulat ako sa kanila, baka naman ma-reconsider nila kasi sayang naman ang pagkakataon, maririnig ng tao kung ano talaga nangyari, kung nagkamali ako, tatanggapin ko naman at mas maganda yung nagkakaliwanagan kasi pag hindi sumisipot, ang duda ng tao may tinatago. Umaasa pa rin ako dun sa sinabi ni Presidente na hindi daw pagbabawal, pero ang liwaliwanag ng sulat, bawal. Hindi sila a-attend.
And joining us today, Storycon's resident political papa, Tito Ronald Llamas.
Happy Tuesday!
Happy April Fool's Day! So, Eid Mubarak, but also Happy April Fool's Day.
That's why I called you Papa.
Paano ba yung breaking news kanina?
Ano?
Na tinanggap na yung asylum ni Harry sa Netherlands.
Teka, ingat ka dyan ha. Context,
Baka
April 1
naman.
ngayon,
Yeah,
April 1.
April Fools.
Mamaya,
Inunahan ako eh.
Mamaya may cut ng sinabi mo yan tapos
Inunahan ako eh.
According to
Baka mag-headline sa
Ronald
Philippine Star.
Speaking of the Philippine Star, Editor-in-Chief, I'm Pamintuan. Welcome. Happy Tuesday.
Hi, happy Tuesday.
Ano ba yan? Red and black?
Sabi na
Red and black ba
Black
yan?
and ano mo.
Talaga may
yung
segment to ano.
Yung color namin mga anarchist. Red and black.
Red and
Anarchist color siya.
Anarchista.
Alam mo, dapat
Happy
nga
April
may
Fools,
special
ah.
segment si Tito Rol eh.
to critiquing ano, Ami. Uy, Ami, di ba we talked about this? Ano ba yan? Unjust vexation na ba yan? Pwede na nating ano?
Parang ang hirap.
Kasuhan?
Parang ang hirap
Ano,
yung unjust
sleepless
vexation.
nights in unjust vexation.
Parang ang hirap
Moral damage
Pwede mo
yan.
na kasuhan, Ami.
Parang ang hirap i-vexation si Ami.
Para
Oh,
i-vexate.
hindi pa ako vex, hindi pa vex.
Parang ikaw yung-
Na-amuse pa lang ako eh. Amuse.
Amuse pala.
Parang ikaw yung tatamaan eh, no? Yung babanda sa'yo. No?
The boomerang effects. Speaking of anarchists, let's talk about the next Senate hearing na hindi nadadaluhan ng cabinet secretaries, which is
Dinikit mo sa anarchist talaga.
Parang delicate na sa unjust vexation. Di ba?
lahat dikit-dikit.
It's all connected.
Which is I'm sure came as a bit of a surprise to Senator Amy because sabi ng just the day before, sabi ng Malacanang, they are not going to hinder the CABSEX from
No, that was
appearing.
also yesterday.
Yes. Same day.
31.
Same day.
March 31, according to Yusek Claire Castro.
Baka naman April Fools lang.
Hindi, 31 nga eh.
Hindi, may letter na eh.
Sabi
Hindi, yung
Certified.
today.
Oo.
Hindi pipigilan ng Pangulo mga cabinet members or secretaries kung sila ay ipatawag. On the same day na nilabas, at least yung date sa sulat.
There was a letter from E.S. Bersamin.
Naalala ko dati, nag-April Fools ako eh. Tapos, sineryoso ng naman, D&D.
Ano namang inipil susunod din
Ang pwede pang sumitot
Ayan.
dyan, yung mga pulis.
Ayan na. So we're part of the letter by E.S. Bersamin reads, all matters not covered by executive privilege have already been extensively discussed. Therefore, further participation may no longer be necessary. He addressed it to Senator Amy Marcos and Senate President Chis Escudero.
Parang ayaw lang talaga nila.
Oh, pero bakit mo sasabihin during the palace presser na we're not gonna stop them from testifying, from appearing at the hearing, tapos within the same day, nagbigay na pala na sulat si E.S. Bersamin to say,
Nagbago isip.
oh, yun lang ba yun? Or
Baka may nag-advise na baka may nag-advise doon sa cabinet na ayaw na namin makita pagmumukha niya. Kasi nagkasagutan, di ba? Nagkainitan
Yes.
doon sa ano eh.
Yan
Yes.
ba yung magkakaroon
Yeah,
ng
and in
unjust
fact, pati si
vexation?
Senator Aimee, na umamin sabi daw na staff niya, paluin mo nga yan. Paluin nga daw si Remulla, si Boying Remulla. Sabi daw sa kanya.
Paano magkakaroon ng unjust vexation niya? Ayaw makita ang pagmumukha niya.
but the question is, nagbago yung isip o nag-miscommunication? Yung alam ng isa is this, alam ng other side is this. So,
Posible yung all of the above.
Yeah.
Diba?
okay.
At saka baka nga yung mga cabinet members na nagsabi, ayaw na namin nga siyang makita. And we have already answered all her questions.
O parang may, kundi naman may judgment na rin sa Senator Amy.
Yeah.
Diba? Doon sa
may
Senate hearing,
report na may
hatol
initial
na siya
report na.
May hatol na siya, kaya
Oo.
baka naasar yung iba na, bakit pa mag-hearing? Meron na pala siyang judgment.
Kaya nga, may report
And
na
for all appearances, it looks like it's her report, her initial report, not the committee's.
Yes, yes.
Because it was only signed, it was not signed.
It was not signed.
No, it's
And
not signed by the committee
May
members.
lang, may letterhead lang.
The letterhead says committee,
Correct.
tapos pangalan niya. So it appears to be from the chairperson lang.
But in the same preliminary report, she said there are still questions that are unanswered. Marami pa siyang gusto
Kaso
ibunya.
during the hearing, naglabas na siya ng
Pero may
statement.
conclusion na kasi siya ron Kaya kung ikaw din yung cabinet, di ba sabi niya, there were glaring violations
yes.
of the rights of Duterte. Eh di meron ka ng conclusion, mababago pa ba? I doubt if she can change that conclusion. So
Sabi
ano
pa
pang masasabi nila?
Sabi pa nga niya ay,
Di ba?
are we a province of
The Hague.
The Hague.
The Hague.
The Hague.
No, we're a province of China.
Dapat ang sinabi doon, are we a province of the Netherlands?
Of China.
Dahil yung The Hague
It's
kasi
a province in the
isang
Netherlands.
lugar lang sa Netherlands.
Exactly. Exactly.
Our guest is here,
Let's bring in our first guest. I
Monsod.
think he's waiting on Zoom. We've got attorney
Yes.
Christian Monsod, one of the framers of the 1987 Constitution and former COMELEC chair. Good afternoon, Attorney Monsod. Thanks for
Good afternoon,
making
sir.
time for us.
Ang ganda ng background ni Sir.
Good afternoon, attorney.
Good afternoon,
Oo,
Chair.
ang ganda ng background,
Good afternoon, Chair
Kakaingit.
Monsod.
Parang gusto namin pumunta dyan,
Sir, we can do a face-to-face interview if you like. If you prefer, we'll go there.
Pupunta kami dyan.
It's a beautiful beach.
Oh,
And his Monsod is with our youngest grandchild,
Saan po yan? Saang province?
6 years old. She's in the water with her.
Oh,
Oo, kasi for the viewers, we were trying to get attorney Maring Winnie as well, together with attorney Christian together in the Zoom. Pero yun nga, she's busy. But anyways, attorney Monsod.
I thought you had Justice Carpio.
Nasa US yata siya.
Oo. He's not around.
Yeah, he's in the US.
Attorney Monsod, we invited you today to talk about the petition that your group filed asking the Supreme Court to compel Congress to enact a law against political dynasties. And the question there is, pwede po ba to? The Congress being a co-equal branch of the Supreme Court, can they compel?
Well, I think the point is that there must be a system of checks and balances, and the ultimate move is the Supreme Court in this case. So this is going to be a precedent, right? A precedence on whether the Supreme Court has that power. We are not the only ones. No, we are the third
Yes,
group
sir.
that has filed a petition. And we are hoping, they say that the Congress is the purse, the executive is the sword, and the Supreme Court is the conscience of the nation. So, it's time for the Supreme Court to come forward with something that it's a mandate of Congress, which they have not done for 38 years. So we are hoping that the Supreme Court will take on that very difficult and the precedents in our system, that the system must work and
Chairman?
cannot work
Pero sir,
unless
yes, sir.
we have an anti-dynasty law.
Chairman, sabi nyo, ito yung third petition. Anong kaibahan nito doon sa first two? At saka anong status ng first two?
I did not read the petitions, but it's exactly, almost exactly the same. Certiorari with Mandamus. They're all going to the Supreme Court to say that we trust that the Supreme Court will do this duty for the sake of the country.
Pero sir, I understand that there were earlier petitions filed long ago pa, like 2012 by Tito Gingona and 2013 by Dick Penson. And supposedly they were dismissed on the basis of, and I quote, separation of powers and the doctrine of political question. I'm not sure exactly how that works. Yes, sir.
We know that. We know that. But the argument is that our country is in very difficult times because the dynastic system is getting worse, and it is time for the Supreme Court to do something about it, because nobody else, we cannot go to anybody else but the Supreme Court.
Actually, Attorney, it will not be the first time for the Supreme Court to get involved in executive actions, no? Kasi yung merit of kalikasan sa Manila Bay, parang utos yun, di ba? Nalinisin yung nga yung Manila Bay, and it was issued to several specific departments. So, ano pong tingin nyo na medyo pareho ba yung kaso na yan?
I don't want to make any predictions now because sub judice yung kaso namin. But we are hoping that the Supreme Court will really study this issue very much, and realize that we do need to somebody has to mandate Congress to comply with its constitutional duties. No? So.
Attorney, yung sa writ of kalikasan, sumunod naman yung executive. Nilinis naman yung Manila Bay, although nagkaroon na ng, well, it's a spotty compliance. Pero paano kung ang Kongreso hindi sumunod pag inutusan ng Supreme Court? What will happen?
That's a good question you're asking me, because I myself have an option in mind if we're going to dismantle and get rid of this dynastic system. And to me, the lesson of the pandemic is very important. If you notice during the pandemic, when we talk about getting rid of dynasties, we want a transformation in our country. And palang it's transformation from top to bottom. But if you notice during the pandemic, what happened? Within each communities, people with the means helped those who needed help. In other words, transformation can start from the ground, going up. And I think if the Supreme Court doesn't act on this, and Congress doesn't do anything about it, the solution is for us to have a new generation of leaders. You look at the statistics. When they say that our poverty index is 18%, but the Philippine Statistical Authority has data, and they said those whose quality of life is below decent living is 58%. So when I go to the poor, I say, do you know that you have sovereignty of numbers? Now, you can change things in our country because you are a majority. you're 58%, and you start at the barangay level, and 3 years later at the municipal, 3 years later at the provincial, and so on and so on, until we have a new generation of leaders. And we need the help of the church, we need the help of media, and we need the help of NGOs and businessmen with a conscience for this, so that we will have, the poor will be encouraged to run for the barangay elections, young, with good values and so on, and 42,000 barangays in this country, and we can start with this kind of approach and help for a new generation of leaders. And when the poor have already empowered to act by themselves, we are only intermediaries. We have vision for office. So once the poor are already empowered to do this, we step back and we let the new generation of leaders run this country.
Chairman, may mga grupo ng ex-generals na naglalabas ng statement this past few months, especially last year, na calling also sa implementation ng anti-dynasty provision ng ating konstitusyon. Pero mas skeptical sila of this prospering within the present political system, especially a system of dependency at saka concentration of power. Kaya parang may pagkiling sila na only a revolutionary government can really implement an anti-dynasty provision. Anong tingin niyo sa ganung klaseng
Yes, I know about it, but the military, as you know, rising from the 1989 attempted coup d'etat, now the military was shooting at each other. They decided that they will not do anything for the country that is beyond the four corners of the Constitution. That's why when Duterte, when he came aboard and he wanted to have a revolutionary government to replace himself as an elected president, you remember that?
Yes.
Who was the first? Who were the first who said we cannot participate in that? It was the military. So I think the military can really help, but I don't think the solution is a revolutionary government of the military.
Yeah.
But so there are several examples din naman from the ground going up.
BARM.
Just among them, BARM. The BARM passed the local government code of BARM for... well, it has an article that says bawal ang magkamag-anak to the second degree of consanguinity and affinity. Pero that's only beginning 2028, so mayroon pang konting palugit. There's also the BARM Electoral Code which prevents second degree relations from running for the Bangsamoro Parliament. So from the ground, mukhang may ganun na rin. Yun lang, it's very very specific
that's why
lang.
It's a good testing ground yung yung BARM, no. So alam nyo, when we were discussing this in the Constitutional Commission, that how do we make sure it's a participatory democracy, and the answer is that then we should ban political dynasties. And sa amin, among ourselves, we're discussing this. But what if our democracy improves, with over time? Tapos nasa Constitution yung 4 degrees or 5 or 6 degrees. And you need a constitutional change. So we left it to Congress and say maybe we can trust Congress. Now, when our democracy does not need that kind of prohibition anymore, ibababa nila 2 degrees. Maybe
May flexibility.
with political dynasty. We made a mistake, right? As I always say, we had 2 shortcomings in the Constitutional Commission. One is we overestimated the spirit of EDSA, and the other is we underestimated the greed of politicians for power and money. And this is one example of that.
And actually, that was what I was going to ask Attorney Monsod. No, in your petition, what definition of political dynasty is reasonable to you? To what level of consanguinity or affinity? Because I read part of the petition and you were trying to draw a direct link between poverty and political dynasties. Anong level po of political affiliation or yung relation is reasonable?
I think 4 degrees.
Up to 4 degrees.
First cousins. Up to first cousins.
Up to first cousins, ibaban.
First cousin.
Yes, ang prohibition.
Chairman, mahalaga yung sinabi nyo kanina, no? Na overestimate nyo yung spirit
Spirit of
ng EDSA, yung higher purpose, at na
Underestimate
nyo yung greed
of the politicians.
nung sabi nga ni Cardinal Sin ay yung mga si Alibaba na tanggal pero yung 40 thieves na iwan, no? So ngayon ba Chairman, tingin nyo yung ganung klaseng pagtingin ay nagbago na?
Ikot ba talaga yun?
O baka mas tumindi yung
I
greed
think-
ngayon, no? At yung spirit ng EDSA ay lalong nagwin.
Well, that's why I think we have to go back to our beginnings. And there are some evidence already that there is a hope of transformation from the bottom up. As already said, no, yung what happened in the communities, and there are good mayors who are incorrupt and who are very capable that have been there. Elected to office. So meron ng some steps up already, some improvement at the ground level. We just have to enlarge that so that it's a rebellion. It's a rebellion through fair and credible elections. It's a revolutionary movement without violence, but with our right to vote, using our right to vote. Kaya nga ganyan eh. Tingnan ninyo nga yung sinabi ko, 58%. Sovereignty of numbers is with the poor.
Sir,
Speaking
isabi nga
of
ninyo,
elections, pwede ba akong kumambyo ng konti?
Ay, teka,
Speaking of elections,
one more dun sa,
sige,
one more
mauna
dun
ka.
sa petition.
Sige.
Sir, you did say kanina it is a unique petition in the sense na it's never been acted on favorably by the Supreme Court. Have there been other examples in other countries where a high court, the highest court, has ordered the local Congress to enact a law? Whether here or in the U.S. or in other Western countries, where we have
I'm sorry,
similar.
I haven't done that research with respect to to democracies or whatever. But what is happening in the world today is worse. What is happening in the world today is a movement towards autocracy. If you should read the book about democracy, is a narrow corridor between autocracy and anarchy, and it's very difficult to get in there. But what there you can improve yourself and so on. And the question is, where are we in that narrow corridor? You should read the book.
Okay.
Attorney, cambio lang ako kasi nabanggit niyo election. I used to work with the Commission on Elections. There's a story today na ang Metro Manila daw, napaka-rampant daw, the most rampant daw ang vote buying in the National Capital Region. Nakikita ba kayong dito? Solusyon?
I can believe that because napakalaki ng pork barrel nila ngayon. Remember, that is the budget problem. And it's a fact na yung ayuda, di ba, they put it into a single ayuda, and that's for buying elections. So nakakatakot yung consequence na yan. And so we have to really go to the poor and say, we need you, we will help you, we'll work with you, and you have the sovereignty of numbers. We have to change this. And really have a democracy that can fulfill the promise of EDSA, which is radical social change.
Pero di ba, Chairman?
Magre-resonate kaya yun? Magre-resonate kasi karamihan dyan sa mga poor, immediate ang immediate instant gratification kailangan yan. Mga pangangailangan nila are really immediate and kung sino yung makakapagbigay.
That's true.
Siyempre.
That's true. That's true that, sinabi rin sa akin yun nung mga farmers at Hacienda Luisita when they said that baka better to stay with the Cojuangcos rather than get land. Kasi ang buhay namin man okay, no? Doon baka masama pa ang buhay namin yan. But they finally decided, yes, we want the land ourselves. Kasi sa akin, we really have to work hard. Those of us who are intermediaries in this transformation that we from the ground up. But we did it at EDSA. When I organized NAMFREL, I went to 55 provinces. And the easiest to organize were the poor. Tatanong nila, sir, ito ba makakatulong ibagsak ang diktador? Sabi ko, makakatulong yan. Magkakaroon tayo ng pagbabago. And in 4 months, we had 500,000 volunteers. How many died in the election of February 7? We had nine casualties there, all from the poor. So there is hope there. If we help them get hope that it can be done with our help, and once they're empowered, the country is already a participatory democracy. We step back.
Pero di ba, Chairman, kahit very noble itong petition na ito, dahil isa ito sa pinakamahalagang provisions ng ating 87 People Power Constitution, itong anti-dynasty provision. Kaya talagang kailangan itong petition na ito. Pero di ba dahil sobrang pervasive yung concentration of wealth, concentration of political power, sobrang pervasive ng inequality na very structural as well as institutional, di ba kinakailangan talaga na hindi patsi-patsi? Ibig sabihin na, halimbawa, yung ating election system, habang ganyan yung ating election system, ay ang hirap magpanalo ng mga alternative leaders at saka politicians, katulad ng sinasabi nyo. Di ba it has to go hand in hand? Education. We've had 3 education secretaries which belong to our progressive movement. Pero hanggang ngayon, 60% ng botante na kabataan ay hindi masyadong alam kung ano nangyari ng EDSA. So, yan yung mga weaknesses ng ating institutions na kinakailangan sabay-sabay harapin. No?
I think we have to really sit down and talk sincerely to the poor and say that you are the hope of the country. You may not know it. You're the hope of the country. And we'll do help you. We'll try our best to help you. We need the church. We need business with conscience, and we need media for this. We did it before when we were able to bring down Marcos in a peaceful revolution, and we can still do it with the sovereignty of powers through the use of the vote.
There are a number of petitions that the Supreme Court is handling right now, Attorney Monsod, no? A lot of them challenging the constitutionality of certain laws. For instance, yung GAA, yung budget for 2025, yung transfer of the PhilHealth funds, and now this political dynasty. What do you think it says about the current Congress?
Well, I think the studies show that 80% of Congress belong to dynastic di ba? So, and it's getting worse. I said they have the money. They can use our money for their purposes. And we have to stop this. We have to stop this.
And you also...
Sa akin, every administration since EDSA, even Cory's administration all the way, did not fulfill the promise to the poor of a new social order. Kaya sila, sometimes yung mga kandidato, yung familiar names, no, who have been senators, o sasabihin nila, hindi, familiar yung pangalan niya. Isa yan to sa hindi nag-fulfill ng promise sa amin, di ba? So, sabi nila, so to them, to some of them, election is merely a theater for entertainment, no? So they get money naman na, that sabi, at least kakain ng pamilya ko ng mabuti for the next month. So we have to solve this and tell them, what about the future of your children and your grandchildren if we allow these political dynasties to control power and money. Ano mangyayari sa kanila? They think longer term. Think in of longer term.
Attorney, I understand you also think na yung Senate sitting on the impeachment trial goes against the spirit of the Constitution. Could you talk to us about that? Na nabasa ko sa isang dyaryo that you said that it's not right.
Yung sinasabi na under the Constitution, we precisely have separate articles on legislation and on yung impeachment, di ba? Yung accountabilities of public official. Kaya iniba namin yon. Kaya there are people who say na si Presidente daw can call Congress for a special session for purposes of impeachment. They're wrong. If you read Section 26 of the Article 6 on legislation, that's where the power of the President is to call for a special session. But there is no power of the President in Article 11. So, sa akin, pag-aralan natin, mabuti yun. Kasi yung Senate, special power siya. It also has electoral complaints, no? Na electoral acting as an electoral body to determine yung protest, no? Yun nandun sa legislative kasama doon. Pero itong impeachment issue is under another article of the Constitution.
So, Chairman, kung sakaling hindi mag-convene yung Senate as a trial court until matapos itong 19th Congress, ay pwede pa silang mag-convene sa 12th Congress na-file yung impeachment sa 19th Congress?
But I think they should have done that immediately. And daming excuse na binibigay nila, sabi ni Escudero, na they have to take a look at the rules. What's he talking about? The Senate is already engaged in trials of impeachment. There are already rules. You only have to edit it or add or subtract few, but not to they could have started earlier. But February 5 pa sa kanila, they did nothing. Now postponed, di ba? To June, and then July pa yung trial. But, well, we'll see what happens. No? I hope the results of the elections will be positive rather than negative.
Pero sabi nyo nga, Chair, na yung Presidente ay hindi pwede mag-call ng special session for the specific purpose of impeachment. Tapos yung Senate naman is foot-dragging yung pag-convene nila sa trial court. No? So, what has to give? Limited na yung panahon, no? In less than 2 months ay election na. Tapos sa June ay 6 session days na lang bago mapalitan yung 19th Congress. So, kung hindi mangyari yan, anong ibang recourse?
Well, it's like ang the Senate, alam mo, yung was very shallow reasoning about the need for more time and so on, and there was even an opinion that the Senate is in recess and therefore that cannot be interrupted. Wow, gee, what a shallow reasoning, di ba? We are talking here about the impeachment of Vice President, di ba, for corruption and so on. That is very important. And I think the senators, no one of them wanted to have a trial or the start of a trial before elections kasi makakaalaman.
Maapektuhan.
Ito leaning ito, bata pa ito nito, and so on. And they might lose votes. So they'd rather not have the on television the impeachment trial na mabibista sila kung ano talaga klaseng tao sila.
It's all political.
Pero attorney, ulitin ko lang yung tanong ni Ronald. Pwede siyang sumampa sa 20th Congress. Kasi sinasabi ni Chief Escudero, it's a quasi-judicial function. Pag nag-oath-taking daw sila sa etong June, pag naumpisahan na at nagumpisa na, pwedeng kahit hindi matapos, since it's the court, not the persons who are trying the Vice President, pwede siyang tumuloy-tuloy sa 20th Congress. Tama ba yung interpretation na yun?
No, kasi the Senate is a continuing body.
Yeah.
The House
So pwede.
the Senate is a continuing body.
Yes.
Pero
So
paano,
pwede
Chair?
na siya.
Paano, Chair, kung
so
hindi siya
the newly elected senators can participate.
Yes, pwede continue.
Kahit hindi sila nag-convene sa 19th Congress? Halimbawa,
Yes.
hindi sila makapag-convene. 12th Congress na.
Yes.
Nasampa yung
Yeah.
impeachment sa 19th Congress.
19.
Oh.
Yeah, well, that under Article 11, they're still the body that tries the impeachment case. So, you know,
Yes.
kung i-delay nila, ganun pa rin. The Senate will continue the new with its 12 new members can continue
Yeah.
the trial.
Okay. Sorry, sir, we have to leave that there because we're being told time's up. But thank you so much for joining Storycon, especially on your holiday.
Bye-bye, masyado.
Happy
Attorney
vacation, Chair.
Christian
Happy
Monsod.
vacation.
Thank you,
Sorry for bothering
attorney.
Happy
Okay.
vacation.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
sir.
We've got developing news in the stories behind the headlines. Welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Matt Lingao.
And Regina Lay, still with us, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, and Ronald Llamas, our resident political pundit. Let's bring in our second guest for the day, Foreign Affairs Undersecretary. Sorry.
Ed De Vega, yeah, but
Ed De
we'll
Vega.
come back
Alam if
to him
nandiyan
kasi
na
ano,
because it
naputol
stopped
ata eh.
rolling.
Yeah, naputol ata yung linya.
Okay.
Naputol.
But,
We'll try to get back to him. We want to talk about, among other things, of course, yung mga nahuling Pilipino sa Qatar.
Yes.
I think 16 patay hanggang ngayon.
Still in detention.
Hindi, nagulat lang ako dahil kung matagal ka na nagtatrabaho ron sa
Yan na.
Qatar,
Mm.
alam mo
yung
na,
patakaran.
na hindi
Bawal.
kahit
Political
anong
demonstrations of
kahit
May
anong
time,
rally ron, whether whatever purpose, bawal talaga.
whether peaceful or
Correct,
otherwise,
It's
hindi
an
pwede.
authoritarian state.
Oy, tik. Anya na si...
Monarchy Constitutional
Ayun na.
monarchy.
Okay, I think we have him, Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Ed De Vega, Yusek De Vega. Good afternoon, can you hear us?
Good afternoon. Happy Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak. Yes, sir.
Eid Mubarak.
Hi.
Eid Mubarak, Yusek.
Hi, Yusek.
Yusek, we were talking about yung mga na-detain na Filipinos sa Qatar. I wonder, first of all, if you could give us an update. Kamusta na po sila? And 16 pa po ba yung nasa detention?
Okay. There's a slight error there. I was quoted as saying 16. It's 17.
17.
12 males, 5 females.
Okay.
Okay, so 17. They're still in detention. Our embassy is there. Binibisita sila. Tuloy pa yung investigation ng police. And according to our embassy, walang indication gano'ng katagal pa ito.
Mhm.
But after the investigation, either i-release sila ng police or i-charge sila.
Mhm.
Now, maaari na i-release or ang charge lang yung organizer kasi yun ang paulit-ulit na tinatanong who organized this.
Mhm.
So, but we must emphasize, harmless naman yung rally.
Mhm.
It was a family gathering, a picnic of sorts. Kaso, hindi pwede sa Qatar,
Right.
yung mga political demonstrations.
Sir,
They're very sensitive. Paakari kung may special permit, but usually, hindi pwede. So, nevertheless, na-warningan na sila. And by the way, meron tayong 17. But it could have been more. Marami lang sumunod sa advisory ng embassy.
right.
So, this shit until tulungan natin.
Sir, sino nga po ba nag-organize? Do we know?
Ang nag-what?
Ang nag-organize ng rally?
Well, through the internet. In fact, ang ginawa nila, sa beach resort sila, south of Doha, I don't know paano nagawa na, pinababa yung sinabi na may discount yung entrance fee. So, para hikayat yung mga tao na sumama. Wala naman sinabi na bring paraphernalia. Pero mga iba nagdala ng resort ng t-shirt para kay Digong.
Mhm.
Ayun ang mga hinuli. Yung mga walang na ganun, hindi hinuli. Now, we will find out in time ano po to. Actually, this is the kind of activity na kunyari sa Western Europe, sa Netherlands, ginagawa without a big deal. Pero iba pong Middle East or countries like China, Singapore, ayaw na ng mga political demonstrations with foreigners. So, ganun po nangyari. No? So, andyan naman ang embassy, pati yung neighbor, yung migrant workers sa ng BMW. We have our funds para provide them legal counsel kung nakatuan sila.
Yusek, kung nag-work sila dyan sa Qatar, di ba dapat alam nila yung mga rules dyan na talagang mahigpit na mahigpit sa mga political demonstrations? Whatever the purpose. Lalo na yung mga ganyang gathering. So, bakit parang bago sa...
Well, may isang dahilan siguro, well, one, they were not paying attention. Kasi tinuturo din namin yan sa yung tinatawag na pre-departure orientation seminar. Pag legal kang OFW, di ba, dumadaan kang BMW o meron kang seminar para turuan kayo tungkol sa condition ng host country. Ito ang posibilidad. Qatar is not a closed society tulad ng in Saudi Arabia. They are Wahhabi traditional Islam. Kaya nagbibihis yung babae, hindi mo nakikita yung mukha nila, ganyan. Yung Qatar, mas liberal. So siguro, napagkamalang ng ating mga babae na parang Pilipinas. Pero, hindi bawal mag-date ng lalaki-babae. Hindi kailangan, walang religious police. Pero, sa political law, they have strict rules. So, sana maging leksyon na to para sa ating mga kababayan.
Pero sir, may pag-asang maging lenient naman yung Qatari government kasi sabi nga ninyo, mukhang hinanap nila yung organizer lamang. Is that correct? Is there a possibility of leniency?
Yes, they keep emphasizing the following questions. Who organized this? Do you organize it every year? Tinatanong ng mga babayan natin, may balak ba kayo i-disrupt yung Qatar? May balak ba kayo i-disrupt ang Philippines at Qatar relationships? Meron ba kayong gustong i-demonstrate against Qatar? So, baka magiging yan, kasaan natin po, hindi yung Qatar po, we can spin this politically na anti-Duterte yung Qatar o pro-Duterte. They're just very strict na ayaw nila na yung mga foreigners doon sumasama sa politika dahil yung Qatar, maliit na bansa, karamihan ng tao doon na foreigner. Mas maraming foreigner kaysa native. So, ayaw nila na yung mga foreigner i-dominate sila. Kunyari lahat magrarally tungkol sa politika ng bansa, hindi maggulo na yung Qatar. So, yun ang isang dahilan kaya ganun sila.
Yusek, what's the worst that could happen? Kung sakasakaling halimbawang whether makita yung organizer o hindi, what's the worst that could happen sa mga kababayan natin?
Ang maximum penalty dyan 3 years, which hindi naman automatic na ibibigay 3 years. Tapos i-deport, maaaring yung 3 years, maaaring bawasan, gagawin na lang, magbayad ng fine, tapos i-deport. Tutulungan namin sila dyan. Kung court-appointed fees yan, di kaya siguro sa legal assistance yan para lang ma-deport. Sayang, pumunta sila doon para magtrabaho.
Oo, sayang trabaho.
Mga OFWs lahat, no? Legal sila. Sayang po. So, pero tignan natin, baka palayain kasi kailangan naman ng Qatar yung ating mga kababayan at yung Qatar tumutulong sa atin. Tumulong sila sa atin para nung 2023, nung nagkagulo sa Gaza, tapos kailangan natin palayaan yung mga Pilipino na naging hostage ng Hamas. Sila yung nag-negotiate para sa atin at napalaya. So, mabait yung Qatar sa atin at maaaring papakinggan naman natin yung ating hinihingi, yung ating mungkahi, yung ating mga ninanais sa kanila.
Yusek, gaano karami ba ang Pilipino dyan sa Qatar? At saka, ikalawa, may kumakalat na balita rito na pwede daw bigyan ng bail around equal sa 1 million pesos. Is that true or chismis lang yan?
Okay. Number one, tapusin ko mo din pangalawa, that's fake news. Masakit naman yung 1 million. Walang bail dito. Ang mangyayari dyan, either ipapalaya sila or kakasuhan at saka matagal detention. Now, ilan ang Pilipino? Roughly 240 to 250,000. Maaaring mas marami ng konti, kasama mo yung mga illegal Pero ang official count, mga 250,000.
Dami Parang
And
for a
then,
small
and then the
country.
ones that are detained,
Yusek, would you know kung anong trabaho nung
yeah,
yung
same
mga
question.
17 na nakakulong pa? Ano yung mga trabaho nila dyan?
That much I do not know. Hindi pa report na natin embassy. We'll report that. Ang karamihan ng mga Pilipino sa Qatar, not professionals, may konti, pero karamihan ay kasambahay. At yung, some office workers na menial office, o yung simpleng office workers. Ngayon, maaring isang dahil lang kaya sila, ito, speculation ko lang po Kasi kung kasambay yan, hindi hinahanap sila ng kanilang amo. Bakit nagrarali? Yung amo mismo, pupunta na ng polis. Tapos sabihin, palayaan nyo yan, akin yan. Ngayon, maaring kaya sila detain. Speculation ko lang po to Kasi maraming sa Middle East, nalagpas na yung visa nila, naiiwas pa. Naghanap ng ibang amo, trabaho dito, yan. Maaring yun ang dahilan, kaya rin ayaw sila palayaan muna. Kasi baka overstaying na. So, we will check on that. Kasi, kung kasabay sila, ay talagang, yung alam ko, yung mga kakari, wala sasabihin na si Pulis, oy, palayaan yan. Ganun, so, ganun po.
And
Sir, regardless kung ano po yung maging desisyon ng Qatar government whether to prosecute or not, meron bang panganib or danger na unilaterally yung mga employer nila, assuming they're still employed, would just make them go back to the home country because of what happened?
Yeah, because the visa is tied to the
danger.
employers.
Pero alam natin yung style natin mga kababayan. Kung ganun yon, aanap lang ng paraan all over the Middle East. Aanap silang paraan maiwan doon. Kunyari, maaaring, very resourceful mga Pilipino. Pupunta sila sa mga apartment na may ibang Pilipino. So, mag-overstay sila doon kahit napauwi na ng amo. So, magiging a little complication. Let us be optimistic. May papalaya sila at makakabalik sila kung ano man ang trabaho nila doon.
And then lastly, Yusek, can you give us an update? Anong nangyari doon sa planned Zero Remittance Week? May narinig po ba kayo na updates on that?
Alam nyo sinabi ito, pero none of our embassies is reporting na natuloy. Maaring may mga individual hindi nag-remit. Pero alam nyo, mahirap hindi mag-remit. Kasi maaring may emergencies, no? That is, by the way, their right. Kung ayaw nyo mag-remit.
Yes, sir.
Of course, hindi natin pwede pipitin na mag-remit kayo. Pero wala sa ating embassy nagsabi na mukhang maging matagumpay.
Significant.
I think some are not relating, pero for that to have an impact, kailangan massive obedience dyan sa protest movement yan na lagpas kalahati ng mga Pilipino hindi magre-remit. Kung here and there, that will not affect us. Now,
Tsaka ang tatamaan, yung mga pamilya nila.
Yeah.
Mga pamilya nila yung tatamaan.
Now that's sayang 4 araw, pero maybe we can survive 4 days. Naku, isang buwan, hindi mag-remit, mahirapan tayo. Pero parang hindi namin, we will update you that. Pero parang hindi natuloy Parang naging bahala na kayo kung gagawin ninyo.
Sir, let me just try. I don't know if you have the information pero just in case you do. Do we know kung gaano kadalas mag-remit ang mga overseas workers nating kababayan? Is it a weekly thing, a daily thing, a monthly thing? Kasi I don't know if they remit every day. Kasi 1 week dapat yung no remittance campaign nila 1 week But how often
There's
do you think?
tendency to remit. Based on my experience being assigned abroad, there is a tendency to remit at least twice a month.
Twice a month.
Kasi yung sweldo nila.
During paid
Parang
week.
quincenas.
So, madali magsabi na huwag tayo mag-remit lahat. Kasi, let's say, Saturday, Sunday lang sila nag-remit. O hindi Monday to Thursday, baka hindi sila nag-remit. So, it's not hard to follow that. No? Pero, kaya, kailangan pamilya nila.
Mahalaga yung sinabi Mahalaga yung
Ano
sinabi ni Yusek na hindi naman ganun ka-significant. Siguro from the very start, dapat chinek talaga. Sino ba yung nagko-call ng remittance?
Ng Zero Remittance
Is it
Week.
20 people? 30 people? Bakit pinatulan?
Pinoy-Croatian,
Bakit?
Pinoy-Croatia yung
Kaya nga, kaya nagtaka ako ba't pinatulan?
Well,
But it didn't start there. It started
just a few
in small
pa lang.
pockets of
Kaya nga
activity. Pero
With millions of
Yeah,
Filipinos, di ba?
Kung dapat dadagdagan ko po, right now is absentee voting. Kaya sa mga nakaregister na last year, kung ang pangalan nyo nandun sa registered voters, nag-umpisa na yung registry overseas voting. In other words, yung mga Pilipino sa ibang bansa, hindi kailangan magmumoto on the election day ng Pilipinas. May 30 days silang lead to go to the embassy and submit their ballots. So, yun, ang isang paraan, naipalabas nila yung kanilang mga ninanais pang politika, hindi mag-grande dahil sa ibang bansa, baka makulong sila. So, ganoon po nangyari dito.
Very good point.
So, anyway, paako namin. Gawin natin kung paano matulungan yung mga tao.
Very good
Salamat.
point. Thank you.
Yusek.
Thank you so much for joining Storycon on the holiday.
good day.
Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Ed De Vega. Thank you, sir.
Thank you po.
Salamat.
Thank you, Yusek.
Hinihingal pa kanina si Yusek eh. Naglalakad si Yusek. Kaya talaga, abala kayo talaga.
Before I forget,
Kanina, yung bakasyon,
last-
nagbabakasyon, inabalan
oh, yun na nga eh. Buti nga,
naman, yung
buti nga they took our
papasok
call.
sa trabaho, inabalan.
Before I forget ha,
Haldingin, ano?
may last piece of news.
Ano?
Feeling ko you owe PGMA an apology.
Bakit?
Sabi mo kahapon, every time she's quiet, we should be worried.
Oo, may sakit.
Now we know why she's quiet. She's dealing with family family health issues.
Si Mike Arroyo, tsaka si Kapitan Kidlat. Yung anak nila.
Pwede namang...
Mag-heart surgery daw si former First Gentleman Mike and then si
Actually, mas
Mikey.
delikado pa si First Gentleman several years ago eh.
Ah, talaga?
dahil
Nung yung
talagang marami
first
na siyang
bypass
problema
niya.
eh. Marami na siyang problema physically.
In the first bypass.
Nung nakikita ko nga siya, hirap na maglakad eh.
Ah, okay.
Mas healthy si GMA kaya kay
Oh yeah, for sure. Active na active pa si
Despite-
PGMA.
Hindi, tinanggal naman kagad pag yung pinalaya siya na wala yung
Hindi ko
brace.
talaga,
Eh.
trigero ka talaga. O sige, pinapalit tayo kayo talaga.
Pero anyways, yun nga, she
Trigger
issued
ka
a statement to say
Ano
na
naman sinabi ko lang natanggal eh.
she's, pati yung anak niya,
Oh.
pati yung anak niya is battling stage 1 cancer. But anyways, yun na, we know where she is. She's off to Singapore soon for the heart surgery. But that's it. That's all the time we have. Thanks for joining Storycon today. Ami Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star, Ronald Llamas, a resident political pundit. Join us again tomorrow, 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Gina Lei.
I'm Ed Lingao. We are One News, all sides, all the time.